Zach here in the Eastern Sierra, ready to take you to the highly anticipated Mammoth Tuff. Now, I've said many times that this is my most favorite area of California at the right time of the year because of its immense scale and fall colors. Part of my love has come from Dave and Amanda for bringing this event to the area and to also introduce Mammoth as a destination. This is a weekend where there's a lot packed in. So let's roll or run. While the centerpiece of Mammoth Tuff was a ride, the smart plan is to make this a destination weekend, not just to acclimate to the elevation, but for all the activities as well, with everyone eager for what the inaugural event would have in store.
Yeah, I'm excited for everybody that is coming for their first gravel event. So I'm hoping people walk away with a true experience of what it means to go out into the middle of nowhere, have a fun adventure, come back and just celebrate that with a bunch of people who did the same thing that you did.
No matter what route you're on, kind of when you get out to those open roads in the Owens River Valley, it's going to be views any direction you look, right? 360 degrees, you can look around, there's a view. Along the way, stopping and taking pictures is definitely worth it.
It's very unique. I think when people think of gravel, it's hard-packed stone and you can crunch it, and you get up here and all of a sudden the pumice is light and airy and it moves away from your tires and it's a whole new learning experience. So I hope people realize that the riding up here is completely unique because of all the old volcanic activity and that you're not gonna find it anywhere else. So you gotta learn how to ride it specifically for up here, get tires that work up here. It's a whole learning experience and I think a lot of people are gonna learn that tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, you just wanna ride an endurance pace. It's like you wanna ride at like a 5 to 6 all day and save those efforts that are a little above it because 8 might be kind of at your limit or threshold, and so the altitude's gonna make you breathe a little bit more, so respect it, drink extra. Stay hydrated.
Vic and I headed up the 395 on Thursday, taking in a ride to help us with the altitude, stopping off at the century-old Tom's Place to climb Rock Creek with the unknown distinction to Vic to lure him up. Do you know that this is the highest paved road in California?
I did not know that. It makes sense because I'm with you.
This is a 10.5 mile climb that by paralleling the creek keeps a steady 5%, except for that punchy second mile. As you'll remember more of these high Sierra views, as the bottom half is wide open, while the top more lined with trees. But we also came across a series of cyclists. The scenery got livelier too, coming across Rock Creek Lake, as well as a couple of other establishments, including a pack station as the road narrows to one lane. But the last mile and a half was the best, just being up close and camera ready, as reaching Mosquito Flats was gorgeous, unless you were circling the lot for spots. But biking makes it more attuned for pictures, and the elevation didn't seem to be a factor, except when it's time to turn around, because you're going to want to bring along a jacket so you can focus on these views. We made our way to our hotel, to the conveniently situated Alpenhof Lodge, with a couple of dining choices built in, but also glad to be just across from the village, where most of the action took place. Friday had a pre-ride in the late morning, and I got the feeling there would be other sleep-deprived GBCers looking to get a few miles in early. So I put together a fun 13-mile loop with some single-track payoff on the way down. It was 6 miles to the peak on Minaret Road, at a real steady grade, and a short reprieve halfway up, hitting the lodge only a half mile later, where the fee-based Uptown Trail originates. But we continue to head on pavement, veering away from Post Pile Road, and reaching reason enough alone why to do this ride, taking in the panorama from Minaret Vista, which is truly rarefied air, as looking across to the 13,000 foot Mount Ritter and its surroundings is so voluminous in person. The good news if you're nearsighted, that there's still plenty of fun for you. Taking the Mountain View Trail to the Uptown Trail, which is nearly 7 miles, transforming you into a downhill daredevil. The dirt exited us right by the start, but there wasn't time for chit-chat, needing to hightail it from the pre-ride to make it within minutes of the pre-ride, as the large group was awaiting us at Footloose Sports, but not for long, heading back up Main Street, being led by an exuberant Amanda with the tough start only hours away, feeding the excitement of the village people, as this 19-mile loop was a proper warm-up, covering the first dirt section of the short course and the final piece of off-road, all faced at the end. We headed up Minaret Road to Mammoth Scenic Loop, but Amanda gave us some good notes before we went down, as I remember the trickiness previously riding this dirt in the opposite direction, or some might say wrong direction, push, as everyone looked prepared to let it whip, feeling the enthusiasm as we were ready to hit gravel! As this was only supposed to be a pre-ride, everyone was ready to chop it up, one way or another, but while a good portion of the riders would be on other courses tomorrow, this long descent gave people an idea of what's in front of them, as this pumicey sand is a byproduct from Owens Valley, meaning you have to pedal through despite what gravity is telling you, and getting ready for a taste of Tatooine, letting you know if your tire pressure is on point, making me confident about Saturday, as we made it back to Mammoth Scenic Loop, all feeling good about ourselves. Our expedited return included a quick 5 miles on 395, but coming off the highway didn't mean the most direct route back, previewing the final 2-mile dirt climb, which everyone was pushing the pace, but take note, as that would be a different story tomorrow. We said our goodbyes, but today's entertainment wasn't over, with the Mammoth Buff Beer Mile going off that afternoon, with a festive mood already, as participants had to drink a pint between third of a mile laps, and watching the women go at it first prompted questioning my life choices. Seeing that consuming beverages with a certain ABV wasn't so simple, but my belief that it was still the same runner who ran a sub 3-hour marathon years ago was shut down early in the first lap, not just from these particular fluids, but how I flatlined starting all out at this elevation, with others pacing themselves better, as I was happy to finish with muscles I haven't used for years, and checking on each breath as if it was my last.
So how you feel, Zachary?
Do not let my family see this. Race day was finally here, and the butterflies were all gone, with the excitement already palpable and the temps warmer than we thought. But Troy from Road Bike Action's prediction for finishing in 11 hours 11 seconds seemed accurate, as we tackled the Tuffer medium course, which seems tame looking at the numbers, but is far more hostile in practice. Dave was literally stoked to get moving, as the controlled start set a happy tone, especially setting off with little effort, but the ride heated up turning onto Sawmill Cutoff, So much, I started drifting back, taking off my jacket, causing my irrational rationalism to take over, burning some early matches to make it back up to the front, and even getting a KOM on the first climb. But even hitting the loose downhill, I had a lot of ground to make up, hoping I'd find the group going under the 395, and maybe surprising a few making it back. With 4.5 miles left in the forest, the big challenge was staying on course, as this section was mostly downhill, making it difficult to navigate around the myriad of offshoots. But it was an adrenaline rush picking your line, taking advantage when the pavement appears, bobbing and leaping our way through these long shadows. No denying the fun factor, but getting back on concrete again brought a whole new shift, seeing the larger character of the ride introducing itself as a symptom of exiting the forest and marveling at the scale of this open space.
Time to dial it back. Should be racing for this.
Crossing over the cattle guard ends your encounter with pavement for the next 12 miles. But as the sector is hovering around 7,000 feet, there's a lot to consider here, like picking the correct line to avoid the washboard, staying clear from dust of passing traffic, not to mention making sure your bike is in correct working order, now truly facing the elements, but also looking for the same set of bovines that jumped in front of this fence 2 years ago.
They recognize me!
To me, the distractions were minor, with the true joy being around these unique surroundings and seeing the look of others with their delight, in which was a special shared experience. With little fanfare, we transitioned on to Benton Crossing for our longest paved segment of the day, hammering out an efficient 10 miles, making it across a popular spot on the Owens River, which its campground might have been responsible for the earlier dust-ups. But riding in a group was ideal, as the first rest stop wasn't until mile 48, and passing Crowley Lake meant we had 18 to go, as I ended needing just 2 bottles out of the 4 to get there, even after embarking on this 4-mile climb, averaging a semi-consistent 3%, getting an early read on the upcoming landscape, which was my least anticipated going in. The turnoff to Owens Gorge Road signaled a welcome return to dirt, as bearded from birth GBCer guy scouted the eastern loop and was seriously concerned about the bumpiness driving over these 12 miles. But Owens Gorge Road was pleasantly smooth, and the only slowing was for the scenery. But our time on this thoroughfare was brief, turning on to Casa Diablo Mine Cutoff Road, leading into over 5 miles of downhill. And from Guy's assessment, I was expecting a few teeth to pop out, but it didn't feel that different than the big descent from yesterday's shakeout ride, as it was soft and you had to ride through spots. And our biggest obstacle happened to be a couple of sheepdogs causing a dust-up. So even though it wasn't champagne gravel, and I did have to pick my line a couple of times, it was great seeing everyone handle it the same, keeping up with the group until...
Chain got stuck. Time to hit the reset button.
Now alone, oddly the road conditions seemed to improve. And even more so turning onto the similarly named Casa Diablo Road, which pleasantly became the highlight of the day, with the White Mountains lingering to the east and the Glass Mountain Ridge to the north framing the caldera, seeing the beauty of this geology up close. But even though this was 5 miles trending up, it felt like we were pedaling as much on the previous downhill, highlighting the difference in surfaces. But I will never complain about recon going wrong, when it pertains switching a negative to a positive with these conveniently laid out views, along with the fall colors starting to pop out. We rolled back onto Benton Crossing, which was an easy transition off of off-roading, but it was thumbs up being only 2 quick miles to the aid station that some of us were ready to attack the offerings. And this nicely positioned downhill assisted as well, coming in feeling cheery like the volunteers with the big selection of snacks, good vibes from Ranger Dave, not to mention red, orange, green, and blue. But I was glad to be rejoined by Vic, as well as Dave and Danny from Gravelstoke, as we soon turned back to dirt for our most significant climb of the day, rising up Deer Springs Road at 5.4% over 3.5 miles. The start was tame, but we had been exposed for over 40 miles, and while this isn't the most colossal climb on paper, the underlying elements of the day started kicking in, as the steeper grades wasn't punishing enough on itself, but also making a more sustained effort at altitude on a surface not properly rewarding your struggle, with trees just far enough back not to provide shade, and few visual cues where you're headed. Perseverance was the watchword, as nearing the peak was signaled high plains drifter style, also shot in this forest, while reaching the apex at almost 8,000 feet is worthy of a stop, if not just to see where your final 25 miles led. While a straightish 5-mile descent may feel like compensation for your effort, it's best to let someone else go first, with the first half mile averaging over 11%, where your braking skills will come in handy, on top of some tap dancing as well. And as the grades start to let up, I could parse out tire widths without even asking, also not managing climbing, let alone driving in the opposite direction. But here we are. The strangest phenomena was the amount of pedaling, even though gravity would suggest otherwise, allowing selfie action at a grade that normally wouldn't permit, as most would expect to conserve energy and not sweating out looking at the route, unless you were smart enough to double up tandem style. But I'm glad I focused my attention elsewhere, as the Sierra guided my thoughts away from the hardships. We returned onto flattish Benton Crossing, but now we had a new foe in a heavy headwind, so the smart move was jumping onto any train passing by, seeing their time trial skills were prudent. And as the bend around the Owens River took us due west, the group properly abandoned our direct pace line, with an echelon formation the only way to battle through. Turning back onto Owens River Road, the focus is getting through the last 15 miles, and your eagerness is combated by heavier gusts on top of a roadway that looks endless. But going left onto Hot Creek Hatchery Road felt like progress was being made, not just by confirming it was properly named, but that we were not too far from the aid station. And while most headed there, I couldn't pass up returning to one of the most unique spots around to see the pureness of blue from this historic geological site, thanks to the bed of magma below. And if other cyclists wanted to leave this all to myself, so be it, as I found them at the aid station right above, with people needing a break even with 10 miles left, as so says the experts. While the rest of this dirt sector looks straightforward, Vic would say this was glass half full talk, as grinding your gears was a requirement, and the downhills didn't seem that much faster, with even the pavement not feeling like a remedy. But at least my bulby torso is effective at blocking wind, as turning onto the 395 proved, it kept intensifying the closer we got to Mammoth Lakes, at levels I've never experienced before. And moving over to the parallel road had pretty much the same effect, just without the traffic. Heading under the 395 seemed like the home stretch, revisiting Sawmill Road from the day before. And while I remembered this was less than 2 miles of climbing on dirt, we were changed people since yesterday, as now I could hear the sand laughing back at us, Or maybe we just wanted to finish, as returning onto Main Street meant just a mile back, wiggling our way into the village. Good to see friends and well-wishers at the finish line. Oh, and Troy too. Super happy to post-game at Shelter Distillery, where food and beverages were tastily provided, but festivities actually closed on Sunday, where the winners were crowned, and a deep prize pool for the raffle looking like a buffet, with Danny coming out on top, walking away with a Niner frame. And I'd give a big thanks to Amanda and Dave, but they are probably still reading off raffle numbers.
So Mammoth Tuff was more than an event, it was an experience. Everyone that came out here was able to catch these views. I'm sure they're sharing it with their friends, family, and bringing them along next year. Eastern Sierra has not been covered enough, and Dave and Amanda should be very proud how they exposed people to this. Yeah, we knew it wasn't going to be easy, but the physical effort on top of all the festivities, oh, what a complete weekend. Anyways, if you want to help support our adventures, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, or go to our shop or support us on Patreon so we can bring you more from the state of dirt.